Well, hi there, and welcome to the Sovereign CEO podcast, where we talk about location-independent income, moving to a less bad country, or setting up an international backup plan. I am Caleb Jones. Just so you know, I have another podcast. We have a lot of new faces and new eyes in this content lately. I have another podcast, which is even bigger podcast than this one, called the Alpha Male 2.0 podcast. And over there, we talk about lifestyle design for men, how to live a free life as a man. We talk about dating, relationships, anti-aging, and location-independent income and 5 flags, investing. We talk about a lot of stuff. And if you have any interest in that podcast, in addition to this one, that's once a week, just like this podcast is, you can go to alphamale20.com/podcast. And it's on all the usual podcast platforms. Today, I'm going to talk about the business model that I teach, the business model that I recommend. It is called the Alpha 2.0 business model, and I should probably differentiate that. So I have another brand on the internet called Alpha Male 2.0. I also have named Alpha 2.0 without the word male as the descriptor for the type of business that I recommend. And I take the word male out of there because women can do this too, and many women have. Matter of fact, I work directly with many women who have followed this business model. And this is a business model that I've talked about a lot. I've done 1 or 2 podcasts on this before. I'm going to give a different angle at this time. Plus, again, there are a lot of new people to this content, so I want to make sure you understand what I'm talking about when I say Alpha 2.0 business or location independent business. And frankly, depending on when you are watching or listening to this podcast, if you are watching or listening to this podcast before November 7th, 2022, we have the 90-day business builder where we actually hold your hand and walk through the process of setting up your own Alpha 2.0 location-independent remote income business, even if you have no idea how to get started. So if you have any interest in that, your deadline is rapidly approaching. You can go to 90daybizbuilder.com. So what is the Alpha 2.0 business model? It is basically the number one best way in which you can start a business and maintain a business in the world better than any other business model I have ever seen. And I am a business consultant with over 25 years of experience. I've been self-employed for over 25 years. I have started many companies. I've worked with literally hundreds of companies. There is no business model I have seen that is superior to this, available for the typical person. Now, there are other business models that I think are good, but they require superhuman workaholics to do. And my advice, all of my advice in all of my brands on the internet are doable by the typical man. You do not need to be a superhuman to do this. You do not need to be a genius to do this. You do not need any special skills to do this. You know, any person listen to this podcast or watch this podcast can actually do this. So here's how it works in a nutshell. First, you determine a narrow niche, not an industry, a niche. And you only service that individual niche. The more niched you are, the easier it is to make high income very quickly because it's easier to find those people. It's easier for them to buy from you. It's easier for them to recommend you. You become an expert very quickly. It's just win, 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 win when you niche. I've done many YouTube videos about this. I've talked about this in my podcasts. Teaching people how to lose weight is not a niche. That is the opposite of being niche, and you will get slaughtered if that is your business. It's too broad. And doing things like I help people in the medical industry do XYZ. That is also not a niche. That is an industry and a massive industry. Even if you said, I help doctors do XYZ, that is still not a niche. Now, if you said, I help cardiologists manage their time better, now you're niched. And if you're worried about a niche being too small, I have literally never seen a niche that was really a niche where you couldn't make a 7-figure income servicing that niche. There's no such thing as a niche that is too small unless you want to be a multi-billionaire. And I don't teach that because I'm not a billionaire, not even close. There you go. So that's step 1 is you find a niche, then you identify the biggest problem or need that niche has, and you developed a product, service, or information, because those are the only 3 things you can sell: a hard product, a service, or some sort of information that helps that niche either solve a problem or greatly alleviate their problem, or in some unusual cases, address their biggest need. There are some weird niches that don't have a problem per se. They just have strong needs, like snowboarders or golfers. They don't have a problem. They're fanatical about what it is they do. You make sure that this product, information, or service can be delivered to the customer, either virtually or in real life, without you physically having to be there. And that is one of the core requirements of an Alpha 2.0 business structure, is that it's 100% location independent. I have talked about a bazillion times how in the modern era, you do not want to be location dependent. You don't want to be reliant upon the city or country or region in which you live to maintain your income, especially today where the world is in a very difficult state and will get much, 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 much worse as the Western world continues to collapse, as the world enters into a dark age, which I think will last several decades. I could be wrong. That's my guess. But you really do not want location-dependent income these days. You want to be 100% mobile so you can be anywhere in the world, go wherever you want, stay there for as long as you want, and the income just keeps coming in as if nothing changed. That's the kind of business you want. So the Alpha 2.0 business model is a 100% location-dependent model, which then frees you up to do all the 5 flags international lifestyle stuff we talk about here at Sovereign CEO. How the hell are you going to move to another country if you have no location-independent income? Unless you have a lot of money in savings, I guess, or you try to find a job in that country. Good luck. I wouldn't want to do that, but I guess that's an option. But that's my point, is these business models are 100% location-independent. If you have to be physically located in the same city where your customers or clients are, then that is not an Alpha 2.0 business. So if you're formulating the business and you're thinking about, well, I want to sell this, but I have to be physically located there, that doesn't count. You need to either sell something else or reconfigure what it is you're doing, you're offering, to something that is completely location dependent. So that's one of the requirements of the Alpha 2.0 business. The next requirement is that you must be able to market and or sell, marketing or sales or both, to your niche in a location independent fashion. If you have to physically be sitting down in front of someone's desk or office to sell them in order to get them to buy your thing, that does not apply. You have to be able to sell it over the internet or over the phone or over Zoom or some other location independent mechanism. Next, you make sure that whatever it is you are selling is high margin, high markup. That means that whatever you sell it for is ideally many multiples of what it costs you. So if you buy a widget for $100 and you sell it at $113 with a 13% markup, that's not high margin. That is very difficult to make a lot of money selling stuff at 13% or 22% or 5% or even, 50%. What you want is something you can sell at 300%, 400%, 1,000%, 10,000%, or even more. And as I have done this throughout my career, most of my income over the past 25 years was as a consultant. I mean, you're talking thousands of a percent markup on that stuff. Other things like information products, ebooks, online courses, extremely high margin stuff. That when you sell high margin stuff, I've talked this 1,000 times as well, you don't need to sell as many things in order to hit your income goals. And the income goal here at Sovereign CEO for you is $85,000 a year in US dollars or equivalent in pre-tax net profit for you per year. Okay. And there's numerous happiness studies that show that if you make less than that, you will be less happy. You want to make at least $85,000 a year, location dependent. Then you're there. And that's very easy if you're selling to a narrow niche, something that helps them address a serious problem they have that is high margin. That's the Alpha 2.0 business structure encapsulated in a nutshell. And once you're there, you don't need to work long hours to maintain that income, because the next aspect of this is that you outsource and you don't utilize employees. I teach a no employee model. That's right. There are no employees in an Alpha 2.0 business. That doesn't mean you don't have help. That doesn't mean you don't have a staff or a team. So in this company, here in Sovereign CEO / Alpha Male 2.0, I have 2 brands, but they're under the same corporate structure. They're the same team. There's about 17 people in that business. I have a team of about 17 people or so, some of them part-time, some of them close to full-time, but about 17 people, no employees. None of them are employees. None of them. I don't want employees. When you have employees, you are basically inviting the government of your country to come in and co-run your company with you. If you can visualize that baby in the Matrix with all the tubes sticking out of its mouth and nose and butt and skin and all that stuff, that's the government tentacles on you when you have employees. When you have employees, especially in a Western country, the government will tell you when you're allowed to hire, when you're allowed to fire, how you're supposed to pay, a bunch of extra bullshit taxes you have to pay. You don't want those limitations. You want to be able to hire and fire people when you want to, not when your big, giant, authoritarian, high tax, collapsing Western government tells you to. That's ridiculous. And trust me, I have had employees and they were good people and it sucked. And I'm a business consultant with 25 years of experience. I have worked with hundreds of companies where the biggest pain in the ass was because of the fact they had W-2 actual salaried employees. No employees. These are people you find on Upwork and places like that. These are interns, contractors, virtual assistants, technicians, people you could pay on contract or hourly or what have you that are not employees. Very important. When you have no employees, suddenly you're free. And again, the Alpha 2.0 business model is about making you more free, not less free. Because there's a lot of business models, most models actually, where people start a business and they become successful, they start making money at it, and they have less freedom than before they started the business. They might as well have just stayed at their dumb job. And I'm not kidding. These guys who work in UPS stores or Subways or corner, convenience stores, it's awful. You're basically buying a job when you have a business like that. It's terrible. I shudder at these guys. You don't want that. You want a business that sets you free, not a business that creates more life overhead. Now, the next aspect of the Alpha 2.0 business model is that once you have that income stream, you don't stop. You want, ideally, over time, it's going to take you several years to do this, and that's okay, 2 to 4 of these little businesses in different niches, selling different things to different people. That way, when you have multiple businesses in multiple niches, if anything happens to one of your businesses, you're pissed, but you're okay. You're upset, but you're fine. This is one of the reasons I was able to survive the downturn in 2008. I lost 60% of my income. But 60% means I still had 40% because I had multiple businesses going on, multiple income streams that had nothing to do with each other. Now that was bad. Today I'm much better off. But I was working with many people who lost 100% of their income back then, and they were screwed. And you don't want to be like that, especially in the collapsing Western world in which we live. So you want to develop, once you get your first income stream going, your first business, you want to look at your second business, your second income stream, which is a completely different niche, selling something that has nothing to do with the first niche. Here was my example for many years. Today it's a little different, but this is my example of the past many years. I had a business consulting firm where I was doing productivity consulting and strategic planning consulting, things like that, time management consulting. I didn't really have a niche, but I focused on a few industries like lumber, sports, and a few other things. That was my non-niche business because it was my first business or one of my older businesses. Then I had a business selling dating advice. Okay, that was purely an online business selling to single men. Completely different than the first business, isn't it? Nothing to do with business consulting at all, and that was the point. Then I had a third business, which was a marketing company that sold marketing services to on-site IT consulting companies. 3 different businesses to 3 completely different niches that had nothing to do with each other. So that way, if any one problem occurred with any one of these income streams or companies, I'd be upset, but I'd be okay. The opposite is what most people do. What most people do is they have one business with one income stream. Stupid. All these YouTubers many years ago who their entire incomes was YouTube income. And YouTube pressed a few buttons. This was around 2017, I think. It's called the adpocalypse, if you remember this. And they changed the algorithm, and suddenly guys had their incomes drop by literally 90 to 95%. And they were freaking out because it was their only source of revenue. Stupid, stupid, stupid. You can't do that in the modern era, in the collapsing Western world in which we live. You want multiple companies, 2 to 4. I didn't say 27 companies. 2 is fine. 3 is fine. 4 is okay. Perfectly fine. And each company has multiple income streams under each of those companies. So of all the companies I've ever had, I've always had multiple income streams spinning off each company. If you've been to any of my live events or live webinars, I flowchart this entire thing out, or even some of my online courses. I've actually flowchart out all my businesses, all the income streams, about 13, 14, 17 of them. I lose track of the number because every business has many different income streams. Now, again, you don't have to be a maniac like me. You don't have to have many companies with 17 income streams. That's fine. As long as you have income streams coming in from multiple niches, you're okay long term. What you don't want to do is start a business, get it up to a certain point, say, oh yeah, I make a bunch of money now, and then something happens with your economy, or some laws change, or you get canceled on the internet, or the culture changes, or the technology changes, that's another one, and suddenly whatever you're selling can no longer be sold, and now you're screwed, you have no money, and now you gotta start all over again. That's dumb. You cannot do that in the modern era. Our grandfathers and fathers back in the 1950s, 1960s, 1980s, they could do that stuff. We don't have that option. We need many income streams from multiple niches. And again, you don't start all these companies all at once. Okay? It's not like you sit down and you say, I'm going to start 3 companies right now or 2 companies right now. Please don't do that. That is very hard. I've never done that. You start one at a time. You start your first business. You set a monthly income goal for that business. Find a niche. Find a product, information, or service, or develop one that helps them solve or alleviate that niche. You market to that niche. You get your income up to a certain point. Then you put this on what I call maintenance mode. And then you start the second company. And you build that up to a certain point. And then at that point, you put that on maintenance mode and go back and optimize the first company, or go start your third business. It's kind of up to you. So you don't start all these businesses at the same time. That's why this may take you several years, especially if you're starting from zero. Now, if you're already an entrepreneur, if you've already owned a business, This is pretty easy. It's just a few things you need to transition into. If you are an employee who've never had a business before, 90daybizbuilder.com, go there and we will walk you through the process of setting up your own business where you'll literally be making money in 90 days. But if you're not going to do that, fine. It's going to take you a few years to ramp all this stuff up, and that's okay. 2 to 5 years is my general statement if you're starting from absolute zero and have no money. Fine. That's fine. And if you think 2 to 5 years is a long time, here's what I always say. Take your current age, add 5 years. Let's say it takes you 5 years because you're a moron, okay? It won't take you 5 years most likely, but let's say it takes you 5 years. Take your current age and add 5 years. Now you have $85,000 a year, which is what, $7,000 a month, coming in, location dependent for the rest of your life at that age of your age plus 5. Is that a good deal? Is that a good ROI? I think it is. I think you're good. 5 years is not long at all. So you can see how the Alpha 2.0 business model is superior to most other business models. Number one, it's 100% location independent. Number two, there are no employees. There are people who help you, but there are no employees, which means your overhead is low and your taxes are low. Number three, once you get these income sources up and running, you don't need to work long hours to maintain them. You can work 30 hours a week, in some cases less, to maintain that income. I've said this before and I'll say it again. I could work literally 2 days a week. They'd be long days, but I could work 2 days a week and maintain all of my business income, all of it. It wouldn't grow, which would piss me off. That's why I don't do that. But I could. I could work all day Monday, put in like a 12-hour day on Monday. I could work a full 8, 9, 10-hour days on Tuesday. I could take Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday off and do that for the rest of my life and maintain my income. I could do it because of the Alpha 2.0 business structure where it's based on no employees, lots of systems, operations manuals, things kind of run themselves. It's a turnkey system selling high margin items to narrow niches. Real simple. Like I said, I have not seen a superior business model that the typical person can do. I've never seen it. And if you think that you've seen a better business model that the typical person can do, please let me know and I will change my mind. I've never seen it. And I've seen a lot of business models out there. If you have any interest in doing this, 90daybizbuilder.com. Otherwise, you can go to calebjones.com and you can download the free location independence toolkit there. There's some resources there. Plus, I have books. I have courses on how to do these kinds of things. Please take a look at your convenience. This is not difficult. This is something anyone can do. This is something you'll be very excited about once you start making money at this stuff. This is something that will set you free. And I will end with this. It's not just about making money. It's about being protected long-term in the dark age in which this world has entered. You're going to want, trust me, if you don't already want it, most of you do, but if you don't already want it, you're going to want income that is location independent that you control. That is not a job. Even if here's a location independent job, you don't control your job income, do you? You're going to want location independent income that you control. No one can fire me. Even if one of my businesses has a problem, goes out of business, I'm still okay. I'll be upset, but I'll be okay because I have diversified income. I've always talked about how they talk about having a spare tire in your car. You also need a spare income. I would argue a spare income is much more important than a fucking spare tire. And you're going to want that spare income going forward into what we're about to experience over the next several years/decades. I hope this has helped. If you have any questions on this or other topics you want me to discuss on this in future podcasts, let me know, and I will see you in the next podcast next week. Have fun.